What's going on YouTube? My name is Batman, and today we're looking at the pitiful state of Call of Duty Ghosts. COD is in a bit of a pickle at the moment, specifically in regards to DLC sales and playlist populations. Now, they haven't actually released the figures for Onslaught, the DLC sales, but this is how you know it didn't do that well. 2 months later, and a week before the launch of the second DLC, they had not moved the Onslaught maps into the regular rotation, and I know a lot of people were getting upset about that. And the thing you have to understand is that DLC dilutes the playlist when it's thrown into the mix, because it cuts the playlist population into two big chunks, right? Those that have bought the DLC and those who have not. And their problem right now is that playlist populations on the game in general are already dangerously low. And a big part of that problem is that because of the new gen consoles, the game's total population is split 4 ways instead of the usual 2. And this is particularly problematic on the new gen consoles, which each sold like under 3 million copies. But they didn't reduce the amount of playlists in the game because obviously that would piss people off. But the problem is there aren't enough people to fill all the hardcore playlists and the DLC playlists on top of Extinction and Squads, and of course the regular playlists, of which there are like a few dozen. Now, the problem with such a low playlist population is, one, even with dedicated servers, which again I would argue they only put in because they were anticipating a playlist population problem like this, but even on top of Dedies, when you're connecting with fools in a different continent or even on the other side of your continent, because those are the only people available in the playlist because the population is so low, you're going to have connection issues because the distance is just too much to fit in smoothly to a lag compensation system. And then not only do low populations bring lag to the playlist, but they also make it incredibly hard to find a match, and sometimes it's just like impossible. Like I'm having that problem right now on the Devastation DLC. You know, I prefer to play the Objective playlist, but there's never more than 900 players in Devastation Objective, and that's how it's been since the day it was released. I get screwed a lot, especially because I prefer to play late at night, because by then all the boys and girls have gone to bed, you know, touching themselves, preparing for the school dance tomorrow, and there's only like 100 people in the playlists by the time that I get on late at night, and it literally cannot find a match, and a lot of people are having that problem. You know, a good chunk of the Call of Duty population does not get on the game during what I would call like rush hour, like right after school when everyone first gets on. And playlist populations are low on the old gen consoles as well because they lost a very sizable 3 to 5 million chunk of players to the new gen, but also because Ghost sales in general are way down this year. According to VG charts, it's like 19 million compared to Black Ops 2's 23 million, which is another 4 million players. So they lost a huge chunk in that respect as well. And I know, you know, before the game released, Activision talked about how pre-orders were way down because people weren't sure what system they were going to get. And that's believable, and sure, it would have a negative effect in the long term as well, but 5 million players is a lot to blame on just general uncertainty, especially because that uncertainty only really applied to pre-orders. I mean, if the idea is these people want to buy COD, they just aren't sure which console to buy it on, shouldn't that mean that eventually when they do know which console they're going to be on for the remainder of 2014, you know, and I'm assuming most people probably figured that out after Christmas, you know, because the confusion is before Christmas, like, oh, am I going to get the new console for Christmas? I better not get COD till I know. But then after Christmas, and once people know what console they're on, wouldn't we expect to see the overall sales start to heal somewhat, you know, now that the uncertainty about which console people intend to play on is gone? But what I suspect actually happened is that by the time they knew which console they were going to have, they had already seen enough of Ghosts, whether on YouTube or at their friend's house, to realize that they were not interested in the game. Now, the console transition split and the low sales are only exacerbating the underlying serious problem, which is that at the end of the day, not a lot of people are buying the DLC, period. And I think that's because, you know, not a lot of people bought Ghosts, but even the people who did buy Ghosts, and I'm kind of one of these people, you know, people are really turned off. Like, people have stopped playing. It's not just about buying the game. They need you to keep playing the game year long, and they're having a serious problem right now because people are not interested in playing this fucking game. Now, the regular playlists themselves, they were lower than usual. You had more problems, but they were playable, and you could generally find a match. That's not going to be the case as they release more and more DLC, and that's already, you know, for those of you on the new gen, I'm sure you're already noticing that now that they've incorporated the Onslaught maps into the regular playlists, matchmaking times are way up, and the amount of lag in the matches themselves is way up. I've definitely noticed that. And as more and more DLC comes up, it's just going to keep splitting people up into groups, and those groups become more specific. For instance, the people who only bought the first map pack are going to be quarantined off from the people who buy the first and the second. And both of those groups are quartered off from the group that didn't buy any DLC at all. And eventually, after you have 4 map packs released and it's way later on in the game's life and Ghost has lost another huge chunk of its player population just to people moving on, which is inevitable in any game, the playlist populations are going to be completely fucked, because having 500 players in the playlist to the point that it's laggy and matchmaking times are long, that's one thing, but it's a whole new level of failure when players can't even find a match period because the playlist populations are under triple digits. So IW has to boost DLC sales, or it's going to dilute the playlist to the point the multiplayer is largely broken, and things aren't looking good right now, especially considering we're only on the second map pack. There's still 2 more to go, and I'm pretty sure because of whatever contract has been signed, somewhere they have to go through with putting out the DLC, even though it might not even be in their best interest, you know? Now, there's a very telling sign. This is how you know for sure that Onslaught didn't sell very well, right? And that is that the Devastation Map Pack did not get its own Codnap trailer, right? Codnap is that new, it's the sort of live-action trailer. It's basically just a shitty copy and paste of the Replacers, the Replacer trailers from Black Ops 2. Remember the Replacer? But back in Black Ops 2, every map pack, every piece of DLC had its own Replacers trailer, but the Codnap trailer did not return for Devastation. I suspect that's because those trailers are expensive to make, obviously, and they are losing profit on the map packs because they aren't generating enough revenue to pay for another one of those live-action trailers. So that says a lot, but on top of that, we've seen clear evidence of this in some of the deals that Activision has been trying to cut with players in regards to the Onslaught Map Pack, and these are the sales tactics that originally inspired this commentary, because they are clearly engaged in an aggressive effort to get more people on Onslaught. For instance, last weekend you have a free DLC trial. Anyone can play Onslaught for free if they want the whole weekend. That's never been done before in Call of Duty. They bought back the next-gen upgrade deal where you can trade in your 360 or PS3 COD for a next-gen COD for only $10 or whatever. They're already doing a bundle deal. I'm not sure if it was a limited time offer, but for a while before Devastation dropped, they had a deal where you could buy Call of Duty Ghosts Gold Edition, and it came with the Onslaught Map Pack already installed, and it was only $60. So in a way, they're already giving away the map pack for free. And that's what really started raising eyebrows for me, because that's the kind of deal you see when a game's lifespan is over, right? They have that kind of deal available every Call of Duty, but only after the next COD has come out, right? They'll sell you MW2 with all the DLC installed for like $40, but only because the game is so old. You can get Fallout 3 with all the DLC installed for under $60, but it's because the game is so old. The only time you start seeing publishers give away the DLC for free is when the game itself is effectively dead, in the sense nobody's buying it anymore. Now, those of us playing Ghosts on Xbox One, we got extra fucked because a huge chunk of our population went over to Titanfall. And what was interesting was right after Titanfall dropped, Ghosts installed one of those lobby main menu little advertisements that says press LB or whatever to see such and such. Well, I don't know if it was this way on every console, but on the X1 they were like press LB to go to squads mode, and they literally said try out squads mode. It's a new way to play. I kid you not. You know, hit LB to try out squads mode. But it's just squads mode. It's not like there's any new squads DLC other than the new maps. It's just the same squads mode that's been there from the beginning. They basically had the exact same thing all the way back in Black Ops 1, back when it was combat training. So I don't see how that's a new way to play. What I think they were trying to do was sort of pathetically advertise that they also had AI multiplayer in Call of Duty, so you don't need to get Titanfall for the AI. But it's like, first of all, that's not Titanfall's main selling point, and second of all, do they really expect squads to stack up against Titanfall multiplayer? I mean, give me a break. And what's ironic about all this is the players who will be getting shit on the hardest are the highest paying customers. New gen console users and season pass holders are the players who are going to suffer the worst playlist populations because they're so quartered off from everybody else. And when your best customers are having the worst experience, you're most definitely going to have a much harder time selling your product next year. Please remember to mash that like button. This is Batman signing out.
Good job. Report to command for debrief.